global politics. You
Yeah.
know, it can sometimes feel like one of those puzzles where the pieces just don't quite fit.
Yeah.
Like you see figures like Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin,
Right.
even that Saudi doctor involved in that horrible attack.
Oh, yeah.
And you wonder, what could possibly connect these people?
It is a question that can lead you down some really interesting paths, I think. The common thread in this case kind of surprisingly points to the AfD.
The AfD.
Yeah, the German political party,
Okay.
officially known as Alternative for Germany. And, well, their platform has definitely drawn support from some unexpected corners, let's say. And it's raised some eyebrows internationally. Concerns, I'd say.
Yeah, the AfD has definitely been making headlines.
For sure.
And, well, not always for the right reasons, Rob.
Yeah.
So we've got a whole collection of articles and reports here that really dig into the party's rise. They've got this controversial stance on Russia and why their growing influence is setting off, alarm bells across Europe, I'd say.
It really is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, how a single party can become such a focal point for so many different figures, each with their own kind of motivation. So I think in this deep dive, we're gonna really try to unpack some of those complexities surrounding the AfD, go beyond the headlines, try to understand some of these connections and what they might mean, bigger picture.
Right. So for listeners who might not be totally familiar, the AfD is Germany's right-wing populist party. And I'd say one of the most controversial aspects of their platform is their stance on Russia. Specifically their pro-Russia faction.
Right.
And this isn't just like a fringe group within the party. I mean, these folks, they openly support Russia's foreign policy, Russia's actions, which, has triggered some serious concern, both within Germany and among Germany's allies.
Yeah, I mean, their support actually goes way beyond just kind of rhetoric, too.
Right.
We've seen instances of AfD members basically echoing Kremlin narratives, word for word.
Wow.
Like, for example, Waldemar Hurt.
Right.
Yeah, he's an AfD member. He has said publicly that he believes that the Crimea referendum was legitimate, flat out denies any kind of Russian occupation. And then you have another prominent figure, Alexander Gauland.
Gauland, yeah.
He has actually gone so far as to say that the conflict in the Donbass is an internal Ukrainian matter.
Really?
And that Germany should oppose those international sanctions against Russia.
It's it's pretty alarming.
Yeah.
To see such blatant support for Russia.
Yeah.
Especially, given everything going on geopolitically. And these statements aren't just like, isolated incidents either.
No, not at all.
Like, remember those 3 AfD state parliament members?
Oh, right.
Tried to travel to the occupied Donbass region?
Back in 2022.
2022, yeah. I mean, they only canceled that trip after they, got a ton of public criticism.
Right, exactly.
So, that definitely suggests there's, a deeper alignment with Russia's interests.
For sure.
Raises some questions about influence, maybe.
Absolutely. And German intelligence agencies, actually, they've been keeping an eye on the AfD for a while now.
They have.
Because of these concerns about their ties to Russia. There are even investigations going on.
Wow.
Into possible financial benefits flowing from Russia to AfD members.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you look at this Voice of Europe platform.
Right.
On the surface, it seemed like a legit news portal.
Yeah, that's what they wanted you to think.
Yeah, but investigations revealed it was actually like a covert Russian influence operation.
It was a pretty sophisticated operation, too.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, this platform, this seemingly, reputable platform was being secretly financed by Viktor Medvedchuk.
Viktor Medvedchuk.
Yeah, he's a Ukrainian oligarch with direct ties to Putin.
Wow. So they were basically spreading propaganda.
Yeah. Voice of Europe. They strategically promoted these pro-Russian narratives.
Okay.
They were featuring interviews with several AfD politicians, including Maximilian Krah
yeah.
and Pieper Bijstron, both top candidates for the 2024 European elections.
So it wasn't just about spreading, propaganda, was it?
No, I mean, it wasn't just about that. This platform, it was actually funneling cash and cryptocurrency payments.
Really?
Yeah, to AfD politicians.
Wow.
Particularly those who were actively campaigning against Germany supplying arms to Ukraine.
So they were trying to weaken Germany's support for Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, the case of Pater Bystrom, that's a prime example. He was getting a lot of financial support from Voice of Europe. At the same time, he was filing this constitutional complaint against weapon supplies to Ukraine.
I mean, it's a clear sign that Russia saw an opportunity, didn't they?
Absolutely.
To kind of leverage the AfD to weaken Germany's support and maybe disrupt Western unity.
Exactly. And actually some leaked documents from the SDA, which is Russia's primary media agency, responsible for shaping international perceptions. They revealed that Russia has a pretty clear strategy in place. They want to destabilize the EU and bolster the AfD's popularity. They're hoping to see them reach 20% approval in the polls.
20%? Huh.
Yeah. And if they actually hit that target, it could have huge repercussions for Germany's role in Europe and its relationship with Russia.
Wow. I mean, 20%, that's a pretty substantial number of the German electorate. It's a concerning thought.
It is.
And it kind of leads us to another intriguing piece of this whole puzzle. Elon Musk's endorsement of the AfD.
Right, Elon Musk.
His statement, only the AfD can save Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, that caused quite a stir, really fueled the controversy surrounding the party.
Yeah, what's really striking about that is the timing of his endorsement. It came just days before that horrific attack at the Magdeburg Christmas market.
Right. That attack was, I mean, absolutely devastating. A car just plowed into this crowded Christmas market, 5 people killed.
Yeah.
Over 200 injured.
Awful.
Initially, there was a lot of speculation that it might be another case of terrorism linked to migration, especially given the AfD's really hardline stance on immigration.
Right.
That assumption, given the circumstances, was kind of understandable at the time.
For sure, yeah.
But the reality turned out to be a lot more complex.
It did, yeah.
The perpetrator, they identified him as a Saudi doctor residing in Germany. So that kind of defied expectations, I'd say.
Definitely.
But then there was a twist.
Right.
Come to find out, the attacker had expressed support for the AfD.
He had.
Yeah, on social media. And I mean, that revelation, it complicated the narrative around this whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Just added another layer to the AfD story,
Definitely. This tragic event and the perpetrator's unexpected link to the AfD.
Yeah.
It further complicates this already really intricate web of political maneuvering, and it raises some really crucial questions about the influence of political rhetoric and how events can be sort of exploited to advance certain agendas.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of how easily narratives can be shaped and manipulated.
Yeah.
Especially in the aftermath of tragedy. And the AfD, of course, they wasted no time trying to capitalize on this.
No, of course not. They
immediately seized the opportunity to push their agenda, calling for even stricter immigration controls.
Right.
And they even started using the term remigration.
Remigration?
Yeah, it's this concept basically advocating for the forced return of migrants back to their countries of origin.
Wow. I mean, that term, it's really loaded.
It is.
With all sorts of historical baggage, evokes memories of forced displacement during wartime.
Yep.
I mean, it's used by the AfD. It raises some serious concerns about their true intentions.
It does.
And the potential consequences of their ideology. But this incident also kind of highlights a broader trend, I think.
Yeah.
The AfD's influence, I mean, it isn't just confined to domestic politics. It's also starting to make waves within the European Parliament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They've been actively forging alliances with other far-right parties.
Really?
Across Europe. And that has a lot of people worried about the potential for this kind of united front, pushing this pro-Russia agenda.
The implications of that kind of bloc they're huge, right?
Yeah.
And that could seriously impact European policy, especially when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. I mean, potentially that could even undermine support for Ukraine.
Right.
Weaken Western unity.
Exactly, yeah. And the AfD's growing influence within the European Parliament, that just adds another layer, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. To this already kind of, intricate situation. And it raises those concerns, doesn't it, about the potential for pro-Russia sentiments and actions spreading across Europe. I mean, that's got to have a lot of analysts, policymakers, I mean, everyone on edge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a concerning development, especially, when you think about the potential impact on European unity and that whole delicate balance of power on the continent. But I mean, how did a party that was once considered, fringe,
Right.
how did they manage to gain this kind of traction? It's not like, they just popped up out of nowhere.
No, definitely not.
So what were some of those underlying factors that helped them rise to this position?
It's interesting. I mean, I always thought of them as kind of a fringe group until, relatively recently. When did they really start gaining traction in German politics? What were the issues that resonated with the voters who make up their base now?
Well, I think you can really trace their rise back to the 2015 migrant crisis.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that was a pivotal moment.
It was.
It really had a profound impact on European politics as a whole. Germany under Merkel's leadership.
Oh.
They made that decision to accept a large number of refugees.
Yeah.
And that move, it really sparked a backlash among certain segments of the German population.
The AfD basically capitalized on anxieties surrounding the influx of refugees.
Exactly. Yeah, they really seized on those anxieties surrounding immigration.
Okay.
Portraying migrants as this threat to German identity, German culture, even security. And that rhetoric, it really resonated with voters who felt kind of overwhelmed by that rapid pace of social and cultural change that was happening.
It's a tactic we've seen before, haven't we?
Yeah.
With these right-wing populist movements globally, scapegoating a vulnerable group, amplifying these existing fears and offering these really simplistic solutions to these really complex challenges. I mean, it's a strategy that unfortunately, it works time and time again.
Right. And the AfD's anti-immigration stance, it fits right into that pattern.
It does.
I mean, their messaging, it tapped into existing concerns, right? About job security, about cultural integration, the perceived strain on social services. It's a potent mix.
Yeah.
And especially when it's amplified by social media,
right,
which allows for that, that rapid spread of misinformation and all that emotionally charged content.
Speaking of misinformation, one of the reports we were looking at actually mentioned how the AfD, they're even trying to rewrite history. I mean, this whole incident with Tino Kruppala, one of their leaders.
Okay.
He compared the Allies' denazification efforts,
right,
after World War II,
right,
to Nazi propaganda.
Wow.
It's a pretty striking example of how they twist history to fit their agenda.
It is, yeah. Kruppala's speech actually at that conference, organized by the Russian Defense Ministry. That was just, I mean, it was a blatant attempt to distort, historical narratives.
It was.
He was talking about this supposed psychological warfare that the Allies waged against ordinary Germans after the war.
Right.
I mean, which is just it's a dangerous revisionist interpretation.
It is.
That downplays the horrors of the Nazi regime, and it tries to portray Germany as the victim.
Yeah, it's a chilling example of how they manipulate the past, to serve their present goals.
It is.
And it's not just about reimagining the past, is it?
No.
They're also trying to reshape Germany's future, specifically Germany's role in Europe and its relationship with the West.
Yeah, I mean their vision for Germany, it's really one of radical departure from the established order.
Yeah.
They want to dismantle the EU, which they see as this threat to German sovereignty. They advocate for these closer ties with Russia, and they're deeply skeptical of NATO and the United States. I mean, essentially, what they're pushing for is a complete reversal of decades of European integration and transatlantic cooperation.
It's a vision that aligns perfectly with Putin's geopolitical goals, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
A divided Europe weakened alliances and a Germany that's much more receptive to Russia's interests.
Exactly. And that's why these connections between the AfD and Russia are so worrisome.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of shared, political viewpoints.
Right.
It raises concerns about potential influence and even manipulation. I mean,
Right.
there's substantial evidence to suggest that Russia has been actively working to bolster the AfD's position, through financial support, covert propaganda campaigns, all sorts of things.
It's unsettling to think that a foreign power could be meddling in German politics to that extent. What happens if the AfD actually achieves their goals? What would a Germany under their leadership, what would that look like? I mean, the implications are, they're huge.
They are both domestically and internationally. I mean, it's a hypothetical scenario, but it's one with some potentially really profound consequences, and those are consequences that we can't afford to ignore. I think we need to explore this a little bit further. But before we do that, I think it's a good idea to maybe just take a moment, reflect on what we've covered so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot to process. I mean, we've delved into the AfD's pro-Russia stance, their alarming rise to prominence, and those unsettling connections that link them to people like Putin.
Right.
And even surprisingly, even Elon Musk. It's a tangled web, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of political maneuvering, with potential ramifications that extend far beyond Germany's borders.
It really is.
So we've been kind of carefully, unraveling this whole complex web surrounding the AfD, this alarming pro-Russia stance of theirs, and all the anxieties that they're kind of exploding.
Right.
It's a story with a lot of unexpected twists and turns, and it leads us to this question, the kind of what if question, right?
Yeah.
What if the AfD, what if they actually achieve what they say they want? What would the ramifications be for Germany? Yeah. For Europe, for the world even?
It is a hypothetical scenario, but it's one that really deserves some serious consideration. So imagine a Germany that turns its back on the EU, that embraces these closer ties with Russia, distances itself from its NATO allies. I mean, the implications of that are pretty far-reaching.
Yeah.
Potentially devastating even.
A Germany turning away from the EU.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge shift from the Germany that we see today. Yeah. The Germany that's played such a key role in European integration and transatlantic cooperation.
Right.
For decades.
All right. For so long.
Wouldn't that send just total shockwaves through the EU?
Yeah.
And could really even potentially undermine its stability.
Oh yeah, I mean the EU, they're already dealing with a ton of challenges, right?
Yeah.
Economic disparities, political fragmentation, the rise of these populist movements. I mean, all across different member states.
Yeah.
And to lose Germany, I mean, Germany is one of the most influential, and economically powerful members.
It is.
I mean, that would be a seismic event.
It would. Yeah.
I mean, it could set off a domino effect, embolden other Eurosceptic forces, and just further fracture the bloc.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, right?
Yeah.
When Germany sneezes, Europe catches a cold.
Right, exactly.
But in this case, I mean, it might be more like a full-blown, political and economic crisis.
It really might, yeah.
And what about NATO? How would Germany's NATO allies, how would they react to such a drastic change in foreign policy? I mean, it would have to strain relations.
Yeah.
So seeds of distrust, right?
Absolutely. I mean, NATO's built on this whole principle of collective defense.
Right.
This commitment to mutual security. So if Germany were to signal this kind of shift towards neutrality,
right,
or even worse, alignment with Russia.
Right.
I mean, that would raise some serious doubts.
It would.
About their commitment to the alliance. I mean, a move like that would be seen as a betrayal. Yeah. And it would likely lead to a reassessment of NATO's whole strategic posture in Europe.
And wouldn't that basically play right into Putin's hands?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
A weakened and divided NATO, that would embolden Russia.
Right.
It would. I mean, it could even increase the risk of, more aggressive actions,
right,
or even military incursions. We've already seen this, this playbook in Ukraine,
right,
with Crimea, with the ongoing conflict in the Donbass.
Exactly. Yeah, Russia's actions in Ukraine, I mean, those were calculated moves to test the West's resolve and exploit any perceived weaknesses. And a Germany that's sympathetic to Russia's interests. I mean, that would just embolden Putin further, potentially even destabilizing the whole region. I mean, the consequences could be really dire.
And then there's the economic fallout.
Right.
I mean, Germany's an economic powerhouse, a global leader in trade and technology.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, its economic ties are deeply intertwined with the global economy.
They are.
So what impact would a shift towards Russia have on all those relationships?
It would introduce so much uncertainty and volatility into global markets.
Yeah.
I mean, we could see a decline in foreign investment. Trade wars could emerge.
Yeah.
Potentially even economic sanctions and Germany's own economy. I mean, it would suffer too as it becomes increasingly isolated from its traditional trading partners.
It's like a ripple effect, isn't it?
It is.
One political decision
triggering
just this cascade of consequences, both domestically and internationally.
Absolutely, yeah. The stakes are incredibly high. It's not hyperbole to say that the future of Europe and maybe even the global order, it's hanging in the balance.
Yeah. I think you're right. So, I mean, we started this deep dive trying to understand this seemingly strange, connection between Elon Musk, Vladimir Putin, and that Saudi doctor.
Right.
But what we've uncovered is something much, much bigger, a much more complex story. It's a story about the rise of right-wing populism, the resurgence of Russian influence, and the fragility of the institutions that have underpinned peace and stability for decades.
For so long.
It's a story that's still unfolding, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And it's one that demands our attention.
It does.
We can't afford to be complacent.
Yeah.
We need to be informed. We need to be engaged, and we need to be willing to challenge those who are trying to undermine our values.
Yeah.
And the institutions that safeguard our freedoms.
Well said.
This deep dive has been it's been a real eye-opener, shedding light on these intricate workings of global politics, and the potential consequences of these seemingly isolated events. But before we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final thought. What kind of world are we going to inherit if the AfD and groups like them, if they succeed? What will that mean for the balance of power? What would that mean for the future of democracy and for the very idea of a united Europe? These are questions we all need to be thinking about,
Yeah, we do.
Not just as passive observers, but as active participants in shaping the future that we want to see. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.